This is the Horse Radio Network.
Greetings, everyone. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily, episode 1402, brought to you by Corro. Today's tip features Dr. Wendy Ying and Horse Radio Network founder Glenn with an informative chat about interval training, what it is and how it can help your horse and pony get fit. And we'll get right to our tip after we hear from our title sponsor, Corro. Have you shopped with Corro yet? Corro is the online retailer who is simplifying the way you shop horse care. With horse-friendly supplies and equipment to fuel your passion, they have everything from grooming supplies, barn supplies, to supplements and tack, and everything in between. They truly are the one source for all things horse. All of the products Corro sells and recommends have been tested for quality, so your horse only gets the best, which is exactly how it should be. They offer the best prices available, lightning-fast shipping, and convenient auto ship for those products you purchase regularly. Visit Corro today at Corro Shop, that's CORROSHOP.com, and use the code HRN for 10% off your first order. Do it today.
So what's Dr. Ying have for us today?
So we were just coming off of watching the Live Oak Marathon, and I was looking at how fit you have to get your horse to compete at that level. And I thought about this as a topic. So basically, interval training is like short periods of really intense work followed by a mild recovery, a very short, not total recovery, right? You just kind of let your heart rate go down a little and then you go back up. And the reason that we do interval training is to increase your cardiovascular system. And then it also increases your muscle fibers and it changes the types of muscle, the percentage of the types of muscle you have, right? So have you heard about slow twitch and fast twitch muscles?
No.
Okay, slow twitch muscles are the muscles that, they're the muscles that you use to do endurance things. Like the muscles that you use for standing are slow twitch muscles, right? Because they have to be working all the time. So they use oxygen and they're for like slow, long activity. Fast twitch muscles are muscles that you use when you do like a lot of effort, like sprinting. So like if you look at people, like a marathon runner will have a much higher percentage of slow twitch fibers than like a sprinter, like Usain Bolt. Remember Usain Bolt?
Yep.
So for our horses too, in driving, we use all different breeds of horses. So some horses, like thoroughbreds, they've just evolved because of the nature of their jobs. They're sprinters. So the best thoroughbreds have more fast twitch muscle fibers, right? Whereas like draft horses need to work all day and they tend to have more slow twitch fibers. So the reason that that's important is if you wanted to combine driving with a draft horse, or here's a good example, that little Haflinger that's owned by Rebecca Gutierrez that we saw at Live Oak.
Yep.
You don't see many Haflingers at that sport. It's not that they can't do it, but I'm sure she has a very rigorous fitness program that increases that percentage of fast twitch muscle fibers for the pony.
Because the Haflingers tend to be more drafty.
Right, because they're bred to like go all day, pull the carriage. And
pull
also
a plow,
pull the plow.
Now, give us a specific? So, if I'm going to start interval training my pony or whatever, your horse. So, what specifically are you talking about? What do I do?
So, your pony is a perfect example. Your pony probably has probably mid-level range of between slow twitch and fast twitch muscles because he's a hackney, right?
Okay. Yep.
But probably on the fast twitch side, higher on the fast twitch side. So you want to condition him with interval training so that he gets more efficient at using oxygen and actually using more of his oxidative process, right? So that he doesn't have to kick in his fast twitch muscles as much. So you would start like right now, you trot around your roads for like 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
And do you do
Oh, he couldn't trot for 30 minutes straight if his life depended on it. No.
Right. Well, he doesn't have to. So you could start out with a walk. I like to start out with a 5 to 10 minute walk.
Yep.
Just to get the blood flowing and to warm their muscles.
Yep.
And then you could start out with, a warm up trot, right? So you kind of imagine to yourself if you were jogging, and which is another thing. I think if you're going to start interval training your pony, it would be good to even just attempt a little bit of interval training yourself so you can see how you feel about it. But you could use a heart monitor on your pony. So you would trot maybe 5 to 10 minutes and then stop and look at him. If you can get out of the carriage and take his pulse, that would be great, but I'll get to that later. But then do a walk, not a long walk, maybe like 1 minute, just to let him catch his breath. And then you can trot again. And you could do for you starting out, I would do 3 or 4 sets of that and go like that for a week. Then the next week, you want to push him a little bit harder. And then when you're getting farther and farther into interval training, if you were going to train for your first prelim CDE right? And you were planning on cantering in the hazards, you have to do some sprint work there. Even if you're not going to canter, you're just going to trot them. You have to do big trot, slow trot, walk, recover, and then do a sprint. Throw that in there. Is that making sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yep.
And so if you were going to use the heart rate as an indicator of his level of working, you got to know your horse's resting heart rate, right?
And what do they usually run with horses?
Well, it varies. You can go between 25 and 40 is normal.
Okay.
So you should go out and check your horse's pulse. And, it's different all through the day, because what if you didn't know he was just running around with his friends and you went out there and tested it? So really for my clients, I say, well, test it over 3 or 4 days and then take the average. So once you get that, when you go in the vet box, don't you always wonder what the vets are doing there?
Right. Yeah.
Because they're checking their temperature, pulse, and respiration, right? And the pulse is really important because when you're intensely exercising, the horse can get up to 200 beats per minute. And you don't want them to stay there. So you want them to recover. In 60 to 90 seconds, they should be down to 100. And the fitter the horse is, the quicker they recover. So say you were in the vet box and your pony heart rate's not coming down, that's when they'll throw you out of the vet box because they'll say your horse is not fit. And also there's all different things like temperature, environment, all those.
Do you think most people are like me and they tend to err on the side of not doing the interval long enough? In other words, I always feel bad for him. So I'm I'm not going to go that long. Instead of 5 minutes at a trot, I go 3.
Right.
Do you think more people err that way or they push him too hard?
I think that they don't give enough recovery breaks. See, they're not riding them, right? So they don't get tired. I see them trotting for 15, 20 minutes. And the horse is dying, but you're just trotting around, you're working on getting round, blah, 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 thinking about whatever. Well, you're not sweaty because you're sitting there, but the horse is dying.
Right.
So interval training is great because, especially with us in Florida, because it's so hot, if you just go for short intervals, you can look and see, oh my God, is my horse panting? Can he not catch his breath? Is he one of the things, my biggest problem down here is all these anhydrotic horses. Well, if your horse isn't sweating and you don't know he's truly anhydrotic yet and you keep trotting around because he's not even sweaty, well, maybe you stop and he's dying, can't breathe because he can't sweat. So doing little intervals, you can check your horse more. Even if you don't get off and feel his heart, you can at least look over and see how he's breathing. So a normal horse should breathe 10 to 20 breaths per minute just standing around. But when they're really going, they could breathe 120 breaths a minute, which is a breath, 2 breaths every second.
Well,
that's crazy.
that leads to the question, in the first couple of weeks, which is what we're talking about here, getting started, right?
Yeah.
So in the first couple of weeks, how many days a week?
Well, interval training, because when you do interval training and you push them, you're pushing them harder. There's a recovery period, just like with anything, because you're working on their muscles, right? You're working on, you have to push them past the point. You have to break down some muscle to build muscle, so you have to push them hard, but you have to give them recovery time. So 3 times a week would be plenty. And in your case, Glenn, with your pony, honestly, I would only do twice a week because he was starved.
Right.
So if you start out with twice a week, if something comes up, you'll be able to see it.
But he certainly isn't any longer for the listeners out there. He's
no. But we don't know if he had any organ damage.
Right.
Because he was so emaciated.
He does. I was just thinking about what you said about sweating, because he does not sweat a lot. Now, he hasn't also worked that hard either. So, might be when we start getting him into his interval training here that we'll see him sweating more. But he certainly doesn't sweat as much as other ponies I've had. Well,
this is a good way to tell, because that's a good question. I get that a lot. So doing interval training is actually a really great way to see that, because you can monitor his breath, and you can see that from the carriage.
Right. Yep.
So if you do like 3 minutes at a fast trot and then do like a 60-second walk, and you look over, and if he is just panting and panting and panting, even at the end of that 60 seconds, then you should walk a little more and then see, is he still panting? And if he is, and it's hot and he should be sweating, that's when you should take his temperature.
Okay.
So if he's really not sweating, his temperature will be really high. It can be like 105.
Okay.
But if his temperature is like 101 and he's not sweating, maybe you need to trot faster.
which is more likely the answer.
Yeah, because I actually had a horse like that. And my friend said, well, maybe he's just lazy. I was like, oh no, I'm sure he's not sweating. And so then I just said, okay, I'm just going to go out. I'm going to gallop him around the field, and I'm going to see. And it was true, because he would never pull in the pair. We called him the trace carrier, because he would only carry the weight of his trace.
I believe it, yeah.
And when I took him out,
that would be Scooter in a pair too. He'd be like, you do all the work. I'm just here for those. I look good. I'm the pretty part of this equation.
That's true. But so anyways, interval training can be really helpful. And I think also, what I see most of all, especially with the small ponies, and one of the reasons why I sometimes feel sorry for the small ponies is, I'm not saying they can't do it. They can do it, but you have to be dedicated about making them fit enough to be able to compete in a happy way, without taxing them. So if you do your homework at home and the show is easy for them, then they're going to be happy. You're going to have less injuries, and it's going to be better for everybody.
And that about wraps it up for today. This is Coach Jen, and I will be back again soon with another tip. Until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements made by guests on the Horse Tip Daily. Please use your own judgment when listening to the tips on this show.